Hello, friend, and welcome to the U-Turn podcast. This is the absolute place for you if you are ready to create a business, a career, a personal brand, or just a life that you are so proud of. And every single week, I'll be bringing you PhDs, subject matter experts, psychology practitioners, business leaders, all onto the show to elevate your success in your work and also your life so that you can leave a legacy, you can amplify your authority, and you can really skyrocket the amount of opportunities that you are creating for yourself in your career, whether you're in corporate or you're a business owner. My name is Ashley Stahl. I'm an international best-selling author of the book U-Turn. Get unstuck, discover your direction, and design your dream career. And most importantly, I'm the CEO of Wise Whisper Agency. I'm a top 100 TEDx speaker on the internet, and it inspired me to start Wise Whisper because my company now has a completely done-for-you process to get your signature talk written and booked on stage. In fact, we've written more than 100 TEDx talks, and we've placed more than 100 clients on stage as speakers for TEDx events. And now I'm on a mission to help every change maker that I know impact millions and share their story. So right now, I'm excited to bring you right into this week's episode. All right, friends, I'm bringing you Jennifer Alwood onto the show today. She's built a multiple seven-figure-a-year coaching business in the online space with her social media following of over 600,000 across many platforms. And she has her podcast with 6 million downloads and her #1 best-selling book, Fear is Not the Boss of You. She teaches social media growth, implementing multiple revenue streams. And she's also a woman of God, using all the gifts that they've given, just believing in the power of the gifts that she's gotten from him to give her her financial situation for herself, her family, the world. So whatever you believe in, today we're going to just talk about how to really show up and build something and build multiple streams of revenue, especially if you're just getting into entrepreneurship or you're already in there. Jennifer, I think a lot of this has to do with vision too, figuring out what you really want, what you want to monetize. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you. I'm excited. I think there is nothing more uncomfortable than hearing somebody read your bio.
Yeah, I know.
I hate that because I'm always like, where do I look and what do I do? And I always want to be like, oh, it's no big deal. And I don't know. It's funny. I don't know if you're into the Enneagram at all. I mean, I am like this much. Have you ever taken the Enneagram test?
Yeah, I mean, I've taken the Enneagram test. I've taken the Myers-Briggs. I've taken the Colby.
Okay.
What's your Enneagram?
So my Enneagram is a 3. And so, I just don't love a lot of like attention. And I'm always like, how do we just get to the meat of the podcast? And so if I just looked really awkward on there, if anybody ends up watching this video, it's just, I feel like when I look back, I've done a lot of things in my business in the last decade or last 5 years in particular. But, also I feel like I'm not done yet and there's still lots of work to do. And there's still lots of possibilities, and the way the world kind of is right now and the way the online space is right now, we're kind of reinventing some things here on my team as well. So so thanks for having me. This is going to be fun.
It's going to be fun. I know that you are a busy woman and I am too. And it's so hard because I feel like we commit to things on a calendar because it's the only way we're able to get our lives done and show up in our businesses and all these revenue streams with our team. It's like, you've got to have a calendar or that you can guarantee that the things you want to get done will get done. And then yet you can show up in your day-to-day life and be like, I don't have the life force energy that this calendar is asking of me. And so we started before we hit recording with just like talking a little bit about burnout and like clearing your schedule. One of the things I've grappled with is that even when I'm burnt out, if I clear my schedule, I take a vacation, it's not like the vacation replenishes me enough to
I can
face the tidal wave that is well.
Let me speak on that because this is such a good conversation. So, I was telling you before we hit the record button that, I'm going through a little bit of a burnout. You're actually the first person that I've said that out loud to, other than I think my director of operations. And I think that it's tempting to feel a lot of shame around that as a business owner, because there's this part of me that's like, okay, I make millions of dollars in the online space every year. I get to be home every day. We have 4 children, 2 still live at home. 2 of them we've launched. I get to put them on the bus. I get to give give them off the bus. Like I have nothing to complain about. So then when I think, oh, I feel so burned out, I have this a little bit of a rub on the inside of, okay, I shouldn't be burnt out because there's so much to be grateful for. And it's not like I'm driving to a desk job. And the truth is I probably am in my office less than 20 hours a week. Do I sit in this room? But here's what I know about entrepreneurship is I may be only at my desk in front of a computer, coaching, recording videos, recording my podcast, whatever, for 20 hours a week. But I'm still putting in probably an additional 40 just in mental headspace every week, just thinking through things and responding to DMs on Instagram and, thinking about how I want to position something on a podcast. And maybe I should launch this new thing. And what about that mastermind application? So there's so much I think that goes on mentally for entrepreneurs that I know we have kind of in the past few years when we've vacationed, my husband has figured out it takes me 3 full days, Ashley, before like my countenance just kind of like goes, okay, like I'm a normal human. I'm not, going mentally at 9 million miles an hour. And then I actually, like you said, I have a podcast called The Jennifer Allwood Show. By the time, I'm not sure when this is going to come out, but hopefully I have an episode coming out where I interviewed a lady who's a rest doctor. And this was such an eye-opening conversation for me with her recently. She has a test where you can go like answer all these questions as an entrepreneur. And basically there's 7 different types of rest. Did you know that? And so like you're probably getting physical rest when you're on vacation, but you're not getting mental rest, which is what my problem has been for a long time. And so even though physically I'm laying in a chair at the beach, mentally I'm still in the office. Mentally, I'm still going through my to-do list. Mentally, I'm still looking at my kids' school calendar. Mentally, I'm doing all these things. And so I end up, like you said, sometimes not coming back feeling refreshed. And so in this season right now where I'm feeling pretty burnt out, honestly. I've been coaching hard for a decade. And by coaching hard, I mean, I had my team double check yesterday. I'm at a little over 21,000 women that I've coached and a couple of really, cool guys in the last decade. I'm nearing 7 million downloads on the podcast. I have 621 episodes that I've done. I mean, that's a lot of consistency. That's a lot of showing up. That's a lot of no breaks. And so right now, I just turned 53 last week. Since I'm kind of just feeling like heavy about some things. Part of that, I think, is our environment just in the world. I feel like collectively as a country, we're all holding our breath right now, wanting this election to be over. And it's like, it doesn't matter if it goes this way or that way or how you vote. I think people just collectively, we're all like holding our breath thinking, gosh, how many more months do we have, just for the inundation of information. And then when I think of like, there's so much news and the social media is so combative anymore. And we're just being hit from every angle with information on the radio, on the news and on social media. And so it's no wonder we feel heavy and burned out. So in this season, since I just turned 53, I'm just making a very conscious effort so that I don't go into full burnout, because I think that's really hard to return from. I think that's a lot of times when women in particular decide just to chuck their whole business. And I don't care if you're making $100 a year or $100 million a year. I think a lot of times when you get burned out, you're like, it's not worth any amount of money.
Yeah.
And that's what people just kind of throw in the towel. So I don't want to get to that point. So yeah, when you and I were supposed to do a podcast a couple of weeks ago, that was the week that I had told my team, I need you to just clear my calendar.
Yeah.
Anything that I don't have to do that I haven't because I do have a mastermind, that I've committed to, but I had somebody on my team that was like, I will go in and coach for you. I just needed a week of downtime to not have to do the normal things. And
I think it's so good that you took that. And I love that you talked about the 7 types of rest. That gets me really curious. Do you know what the rest are?
Yes. And now I'm just feeling like a jerk too, because I can't think of her name. But there's physical rest, mental rest, emotional rest, spiritual rest, which I thought was interesting. Let me think of what else. Technology rest. And so for those of us that are in business, I mean, I literally teach social media for a living. I'm also a certified life coach, and I've kind of veered away just a little bit from the social media coaching and more into almost like business coaching from the mental perspective, because I can teach social media all day long. But if I'm coaching a woman who in her heart doesn't believe she should be making money, feels like selling on social media is slimy, feels super vulnerable to post on her Instagram or Facebook, like it doesn't matter what strategy I give them, they're not going to do it. So I think 80% of a business is built in your mind and the other 20% is sexy strategy. So we've kind of gotten away a little bit from, the sexy strategy, but a technological break I think is so important, except there's always like, there's
by the
always
way,
like,
just
a
interrupt.
tax you pay
Just
for that.
interrupt you for everybody. It's
Yeah.
Dr. Sandra Dalton Smith, and
There
she
you go.
has a book
Perfect.
called Sacred Rest, which is such a cool concept. Social rest, around your social interactions, creative
And
rest.
I'm a total introvert, so I have to have social rest.
Yes. And then creative rest, play, appreciate the beauty around you, sensory rest, disengaging from screens and devices. You know what's interesting about that? I go on this lake trip with my family every single year, and it's the least classy trip you could ever take. It's like really not a nice place. The hotels are like $20 a night. It says there's in the hotel motel, it says double lock your door. Like, what is that?
Oh, you're like fabulous.
Yeah. But the point is we take our speedboats and we go out on the river. And I've always talked to friends about how restful it is. And this thing that I've realized is that my eyes only see the blue of the water, the blue of the sky, and the brown tones of the mountains. That's all my eyes are looking at all day. And so it's interesting when this talks about sensory rest, we talk about Zoom fatigue. It's like sensory overload where, when we went in the pandemic, we were seeing so many people, not just on our computer screen, but the backgrounds that they had. It's just so hard on our sensory. And then you mentioned the spiritual rest, community, meditation, prayer, emotional rest, authentic expression of feelings, mental rest, mindfulness and breaks, and then physical rest.
Yeah. You should get her on your podcast. She was a great interview. And so I want to talk though about too, the fact that you're on a river. There's something to be said for being around water, whether that is, my husband and I, we own two Airbnbs. We bought one in Arizona and we bought one in Florida. And so our property in Florida is right on the ocean. And I never thought that I was a Florida girl because it just gets so hot in the summer. Turns out I'm just an ocean girl. I'm just a beach girl. And I've been pondering, because we bought it about 3 years ago, and it's up on the panhandle of Florida, like on a section called 30A. Are you familiar with that area at all?
I lived in Palm Beach, and I own a property in Palm Beach, but I don't really know my way around
So
Florida.
it's in between like Destin and Panama City.
Okay.
It's in a really, like there's no fast food restaurants. There's no tall buildings. It's like it's a different feel. The area is on 30A. So anyway, every time I go, and I go about every other month for whether it's a couple of days or for a week, there's something that happens to me there that I've been trying to figure out. Like, I can't really put words to it. I can't put my finger on it, but my husband says, you're just a nicer person when you're in Florida. And it has something to do with Florida. It has everything to do with the water. So I've actually been researching this, and there's so much information. I think they call it like blue theory, that I did a podcast probably 2 months ago. And I didn't like the podcast title, by the way. My team titled it something like, why do you have your best ideas in the shower? It's really not about the shower. The podcast is about being near water and what that does for us on a creative level and on a restful level. And there's so much science behind, like they call it the shower, phenomenon or something. Because have you ever had a good idea in the shower?
Yeah, actually, we have a shower thought clause in our client agreement because we've written and booked so many TEDx talks. Clients have shower thoughts and they completely derail the scope of their project.
Yeah, you can actually buy notebooks that stick to, the inside of your shower for when you get a good thought. It's because it's like, and if you go listen to my podcast, I go into detail about it. It's the rhythm of the water. It's the sound of the water. It's the temperature of the water. And so from a biological standpoint, like a science standpoint, there's so much evidence that shows it doesn't matter if you're in the shower, if you are sitting next to a babbling brook that you discovered on a walk with your dog, if you go to the ocean, if you're on a river on a boat with your friends while you stayed at $20 hotel, regardless of what type of water, there's so much evidence to show what that does for our systems in our body, like in terms of stress level and all those things. What's also super interesting is because I'm a girl who loves God and Christian person, I talk about it from a biblical perspective too, because there's Bible scriptures that support the same thing that science does, just about water in general. So one of the things I tell the women I'm coaching, if ever you're like stumped, stuck, discouraged, whatever, go find a body of water, go find a lake and just sit there and, rent a kayak, like do something to get around water, and it will re-stimulate either something in you, or it will calm down your nervous system in a way that for us business owners is really necessary, because all we do is go, 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 think, and decide all day long. And so this is my constant evidence to my husband is why I need to go to our house in Florida more often. Because I'm like, see, I just come back a nicer person. I get ideas, all the things. But yeah, it's interesting. I did a reel on Instagram a while back that was kind of different for my content, because I do try to post, content around business. I get tired, quite frankly, of posting business content. It feels like a drag, but I posted just a short video of my husband being out on the deck and me going and just laying my head down in his lap. And it was titled something like, this is what, a connected nervous system looks like. And what I've been trying to explain to the people on my team for the last couple of years is, I think that I represent calm, cool, and collected on the outside. You would never look at me and think Jennifer is stressed out. However, my insides are not matching to my outsides. And this is, 25 years of owning a business, 10 of which were coaching. But before that, I actually owned a painting company in Kansas City. And we did work for like Extreme Home Makeover, that television show, 3 different times. I've flown to Belize to be with clients. Like we had a really we did some Chiefs houses here in Kansas City. So, at the end of that career, I had like 8 painters painting for me every day. And it was a really cool gig, and then immediately started coaching and just, I now have a team of people there. And I think that I have pushed so hard for so long that just my nervous system is just out of whack. And I think if I had to be a betting girl, Ashley, I think this is the majority of female business owners right now.
Okay. I know that I could talk to you forever about rest and renewal and connection. I also feel like one unique thing that you have going for you is the ability to take action. And I know a lot of people listening, it's like they're not on the other side of the burnout that we're in. They're in how do we actually make this happen? I've found many ways to make money. I'm curious, when you really boil it down to all your business things you've done.
Yeah.
And I almost want to ask you this question in 2 layers of what is the thing you've done that has really up-leveled your revenues anywhere that you've built it? For me, it's been ads, right? I can go on podcasts, I can go speak at events, I can do all these things. I'm going to make money. It's not going to take me past 6 figures, low multiple 6 figures.
Okay.
If I want to scale my business, I've got to seriously use ads. I'm curious what you've used that has really, really been the crux of you seeing your revenue explode in different places. And also what strategy you've used that's been the most restful for you since we've been talking about burnout, because some strategies take a lot more work than others.
Amen. That is absolutely the truth. So my business exploded 6 years ago, back in 2018. My revenue was at about $600,000 a year in coaching. And I had a monthly group for $47 a month that I had open all the time, where I was teaching about social media and email list growth. And I was in a mastermind. I am really a big believer in surrounding yourself with people smarter than you and making sure you're in groups where there is somebody that can teach you how to do what they did, help you to see things differently, your blind spots, et cetera. So I was in a mastermind with Stu McLaren. I don't know if you know who Stu is, but he's kind of known as the membership guy. He was doing memberships before memberships were cool. Yeah. And I've had my monthly membership now for 9 years. So I had it before I even started with Stu. But I was at about 700 people were in my group at $47 a month. And we were in either Miami or Fort Lauderdale at a mastermind meetup. And you get a chance to ask your biggest pressing problem in your business. And my biggest pressing problem 6 years ago was, I just want to get more people than 700 people in here at $47 a month. While that was a good revenue and I had other revenue streams as well, I was like, I feel like I'm missing something. Like, why do other people have thousands? I only have 700. And Stu's like, well, Jennifer, you need to close your group and like tell people that they can only come in at a couple times a year. And so you need to close the doors to your membership group. And then you'll get a bunch of people in. And I was like, no, okay, Stu, you're not like hearing what I'm saying. Like, I want more people in and you're telling me to close it. And he's like, well, yeah, because when something's open all the time, you know, you say to yourself, especially as females, which is my audience, oh, I'll get around to it. You know, I'll do it. But if they know, hey, I'm closing Friday and I'm not going to open again for 6 months, it will cause that sense of urgency to people. And I was like, I'm not sure that I trust this advice from you. However, I'm paying a lot of money to be in a mastermind. I'm like, fine, I'll try it. And he's like, tell me the date you're going to close it. And I'm, you know, we get out our calendar and I'm like, fine, I'll close it at the end of April or whatever. And we had just purchased the home that we live in Kansas City, like 2 months prior to that. And it was way above the price tag that I was comfortable with, the monthly mortgage that I was comfortable with. But I knew when we walked through this house that it was mine, that it was ours. And I was like, okay, we'll figure it out. Well, you know, I'm scrappy. My husband's scrappy. He's a business owner too. Like, we'll be fine. But so we had purchased this house and I was thinking, I need to get more people in this group, you know, to cover that. And so we kept it open another 10 days. And in 10 days, Ashley, I added 1,100 new people at
Oh my
$47 a month.
gosh. What
So
did
my
you-
business went from 600,000 to 2 million a year. This was 6 years ago. Forbes did an article on it. I didn't have the infrastructure to handle that. Like, I had just me and an assistant and I was like, holy crap. And now I need a project manager and I need a customer service person. And so we were kind of band-aiding things together for a minute, but that was the biggest change. Okay. And actually, can I go back a few years before that?
Yeah.
The other time that I had the biggest change is when I quit my painting company. And it was like a decorative painting company. And we were in magazines and on TV and all over Pinterest. And like I said, it was a great career, but I knew in my knower that I was supposed to be closing it down. And I was so stubborn about it, Ashley, because I worked outside of the home about 10 hours a week. We were at about $300,000 a year in revenue. And in my head, I couldn't like, and of course that was, you know, before expenses and I'm paying women to paint for me and things. But in my head, I'm like, why would anybody shut down something they make 6 figures on when they work 10 hours a week? Like, that makes no sense on paper. That's bad math. That math ain't math. And yet I was like, I know though that I'm supposed to be closing it down. And God and I kind of argued about that in my brain for a good year. And when I finally closed it down and went all in on coaching, that's when my business went from like 100,000 a year to 600,000 a year. Because I do think when we are trying to do 2 things at once, we're trying to chase 2 rabbits at once. We have our day job and then we're trying to build something nights and weekends. While that sometimes has its time and its place, it also reaches a maximum because you get to where you can't build your side gig anymore because you don't have any time or energy left over from, you know, being drained during the day. So when I finally gave up the painting company, that's when my coaching business exploded. When I was finally able to listen to my coach and like shut the doors of my membership and have some sense of urgency, then that's when the next explosion happened. And so that was 6 years ago that we had that explosion. Now, in terms of, I think the online space has really changed in the last couple of years. 2020 was the best thing that ever happened to my coaching business. And while it was awful for so many reasons, and I get so triggered sometimes, even just thinking about it. And that's honestly when I think my nervous system started going wackadoodle. We got so many new clients and I started a mastermind in, I think 2022. And there was everybody wanted to work from home.
Yeah.
And so if what I teach women is how you can make money, you know, with your bra off, sitting at home in your jammies, like everybody was like, sign me up. So that was really great in 2020. So that gave us a big, you know, boost. Now we're seeing a total shift. Because what happened is those of us that are coaches, we coached a lot of people to be coaches, you know, in 2020, 21 and 22. And now we just have an inundation of coaches. I think that our clients are more savvy. I think that they know that they have a lot of options. And I think that my ideal client, who's a woman trying to build her business, she no longer wants to be inside of a group coaching setting. She needs somebody to tell her exactly what to do. 1, 2, 3. She needs the exact strategy custom for her versus just a whole group or another course. I think we have course fatigue and I sell courses and I think we've got course fatigue. I too have bought 100 different courses, probably not that many, but that I've either not opened or not finished. I'm trying to remember Amy Porterfield, somebody that I'm friendly with. We've only met in real life once. We had dinner, but I'm trying to remember what she told me the percentages. I think it's only 5% completion for most courses online. I mean, it's horrible. That's dismal.
Yes.
So right now, here's our new focus. And we started a VA service, a virtual assistant company 2 years ago, because all these women were coming to me and they're good at what they do, but they're not techie. So they're like, Jennifer, who do I hire to do my logo? Who do I hire to build a sales page or a website? And I was just giving them random names of people I'd heard of. And finally, I'm like, that's dumb. Let's start our own VA company.
Yeah.
So my team and I came together. So we've got a virtual assistant company called Businessist. And then about a year ago, I realized, okay, we're telling them to go out and buy Entrepreneur or MailChimp or whatever. We're telling them to go buy, this for a landing page and host your website here. Let's just white label some software and let's start my own software. So right now I've got a team of VAs. I've got my own software. We've got well over 500 people using said software. And we are pressing really hard into that. And our coaching is really shifting a little bit away from the group to more of a personalized one-on-one. It's obviously more expensive, but I feel like there was a time and place for group coaching. And right now, my clients, who the majority of them are, under $50,000 a year in revenue, they just need somebody to look into their business purse and be like, dude, this is a mess, and help organize it, tell them exactly what to do to grow, and have it really be personalized for them. So that's our focus, and that's going really well.
That's exciting to hear. I had so many questions along that entire.
Yeah, please. I wish I should have told you that.
I almost got anxiety. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to remember it. My
yeah, that's
brain
okay.
like,
go for it.
Okay, so I find it really powerful with people in business to see what you just said, which is, when did things change? You went from 700 people to 1,100 new people on top of that.
We went to 1,800. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually just sat next to Stu McLaren at an event recently for a whole day, and he is so smart, and it's too bad I don't have a membership. I had nothing.
And a really just solid human being.
Truly. And so
such a nice guy.
Yeah, what I'm trying to understand is, like, it doesn't sound like you took his advice to open and close, or did you take that advice?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I took it. And I was like, okay, Stu made me pick a date, and I gave him a date at like the end of the month. And so we had 10 days, and we just assaulted my email list with, hey, we're getting ready to close this thing. If you've ever thought about doing business coaching with me, you got to join before, I don't know, it was like April 31st or something. And I had no idea we would have 1,100 people.
It was implementing his advice and the urgency.
Yes.
I will say, when I was selling e-courses, which I don't do anymore, about 40% of our sales would come at cart close, like last email.
Yep.
It makes me really sad as humans that this is who we are, like that we just work so to the wire for what we want in life. But
yeah. But I think it's for a lot of creative women, because since my background was really in artistry, I was really an artist of sorts when I started my painting company. The reason that my husband and I have our 2 Airbnbs and VRBOs, originally we were not going to rent them out. I just wanted to decorate a house. That's like my background. I love that. I've got to be with Joanna Gaines, like speak on stage before her and open for her, and for her and Chip. And so like, I love decorating. And so I attract a lot of real creative brains. Well, as creatives, we are very last minute. Yeah. And as middle-aged women, a lot of us who are either, past menopause, which I am at this point, or in the middle of it, we tend to just, forget. And so many people are last minute. What we've noticed over the last couple of years, because we used to do 40% on cart close day also. And we would send 3 emails without fail on cart close day. I would do a pajama party Q&A on a Facebook Live every night. And I would just I'd stay up till midnight, actually, just watching the sales bring in. I'm like, this is insanity. But in the last, I would say 18 months to 2 years, that has really shifted. Cart close isn't at all like it used to. I think a lot of people are more interested in bonuses at the beginning than they are in cart close deals. And so it's just, the industry has really changed. And I just am trying really hard to get ahead of it.
Yep.
Because I'm also coaching a lot of people who are coaches, whether it's business or health and wellness or sleep coaches or, whatever. And so, so we're trying some new things. And
you touched on a couple things. It's like the flow of entrepreneurship, right? And I want to just point this out for people listening, no matter where they are, right? Like, I think about my agency, Wise Whisper. We've written and booked over 100 TEDx talks, nearly 100% success, getting people on stage. And when I really take a look at what we're doing, there's been new problems. It's, new level, new devil, for lack of a better term, right? So it's like, at first it was, we need more sales, right? Like, I need, and then it was like, I need good team. Like, I need people. Now we get the sales. Well, now I need the people to hold it. oh shoot, now we have the people, we don't have any systems, and it's a
Yes.
cluster running around trying to get my T's crossed and my I's dotted. Now I have more
Mhm.
customers than I
Yep.
know what to do with. Now I have the sales and I have the talent, but now I don't have the systems. Then we get the systems in place, and it's like, now I don't know how to manage budgets and
Yeah.
revenues. And should I be the CEO of this thing? It's just like this nonstop flow. The amount of automations and things that I'm working on,
Yeah.
even right now, we, in our first year of business, we did about $1 million, around 50 TEDx talks that clients signed
Yeah.
up to have us write and book. And next year we're on track for anything from $5 to $10 million in revenue, because it's a super scale, but it has to come down to systems. And there's one problem, I think, no matter who's listening, if they've been in business or even if they're in corporate, and it's people dragging their feet. So we kind of touched on this with Stu McLaren's advice to you to like close the cart. And you did that 10-day skyrocket surge, or that 11-day surge, of closing your list or closing your membership temporarily. What about different offerings? It doesn't have to be this, where people get people all the time. They're excited. Maybe it's a sales call. Maybe it's a casual conversation at an event. I see this all the time. People are like, I'm totally hiring your team to write a TED Talk for me. I'm like, awesome. Here's my link. Here's my salesperson's link. You can talk to them. Email me any questions, And then they just don't. Or there's the people that do the sales call.
They overthink.
And they're like, yeah, I'm totally in. Send the paperwork. Can we start faster? They almost rush us, right? Like, I want to do it now.
Yeah.
And then they disappear, and the paperwork just sits there in a graveyard of paperwork.
Yeah.
How do we move people along in sales? What are some of your best practices?
Well, that's the reason why we're touching on mindset so much in my business coaching, because again, you get to somebody who they're right on the precipice of signing up for something with you. And a lot of times they're either overthinking, or they almost, I find that a lot of women just feel like they need permission. So I want to talk about both of those things. I think that, can I ask how old you are?
Yeah, 37.
Okay. To be 37 again. 38 is like my favorite age.
Really? That's a really comforting thing to hear, because I'm going through so much dysmorphia. I look in the mirror, I see ridges I never had. I was just at the gym with a friend, and I was looking in the mirror, pulling a gray hair out. To my knowledge, I've had 3 gray hairs. I went to pull one and I saw another one. I'm like, oh, I thought that I already pulled that one out, because they're my 3 little friends that I've known about for 2 years.
Right.
No, I grab a layer and there's like 14 of them. I'm like,
what? Welcome. Yeah, I actually don't have gray hair because my hair is so blonde, but I think that, especially for your audience that's going to be in the 40s and 50s, here's what I think. I think that we were raised in an era where we had to ask permission for everything as little girls. So ask permission to get up from the dinner table, ask permission to, you got to raise your hand to use a bathroom at school. Everything had to be like permission granted. So you spend your entire childhood doing that. And then people are like, and what do you want to be when you grow up? And you're like, I don't know, because you've been used to somebody telling you like what to do. Our traditional school system is set up that way. And all of my kids have gone to public school. So, I'm not dogging on the public school system, but it's set up to like tell you where to be and what to do and all the things. And then you become like an adult, and then you're like, crap, now what? What do I do? What are my dreams? What do I actually want to do? You're expected to know at 18 when you go to college, what it is that you want to be when you grow up. And I find that very few people actually stick with that, right? So then when you decide, what I'm going to do, I've got this passion, this talent, this thing, I'm going to start a business. And you start a business, but then you get to where you're like, you almost feel like you need permission at times because you've been groomed to do that. Is it okay that I'm starting this thing? Is the name okay? You're second guessing yourself about so many things. And I think women forget that like we have a gut feeling, whether, you believe that comes from God or whatever, like we have hunches and inklings and gut feelings. And so many women are terrified to follow that. And I think one of the reasons I've been really successful at business is because I don't overthink things. If I've got a hunch, if I've got just a gut feeling, like that's the direction we're going. And as a woman of faith, I'm like, Lord, if I'm being a knucklehead here, like back this bus up. I trust that God can, pivot me away from a bad idea. But otherwise, like we're going full steam ahead. I was raised in a household though, where you did pros and cons list. And what's the pros and cons? Like that doesn't work in entrepreneurship because time, I know, that people don't like that time that saying that time is money, but it is, because as you're sitting there, I guarantee you, some of your audience, actually, they've had great ideas about a business or something to get out of their business or whatever. I actually, in my book, Fear is the Boss of You, I actually quoted the guy that started the Atari game. You're way too young to remember the old fashioned like video game. It was Atari, but he says everybody has a good idea. Do what?
No idea what that is. I grew up during
Remember back to
Oregon
the
Trail.
Pac-Man days. Like if you just go back to Pac-Man, you got
Pac-Man,
it.
Oregon Trail,
Yep.
Computer Labs,
There
Hacky
you go.
Sacks, Beanie Babies. That's me.
There you go. So the guy that started the Atari, like the old Pac-Man stuff, he said, everybody has a good idea when they're in the shower. It's the person that will get out of the shower and actually do something about it that's going to be successful. So women are getting ideas and downloads and thoughts all the time, but they're like, do I need to ask for permission? I don't know. And then they are overthinking themselves. Like you're people that, you know, in terms of sales, like they just start to where they're like, okay, if I think about this from every single angle, and let me just say one more thing, and I'll tiptoe on this conversation every so slightly, but because I've done life coaching inside of my business coaching for so long, I have a life coaching certification. I can say with 100% certainty, women that have gone through pretty extensive trauma in their life tend to always be overthinkers because they're trying to hedge their bets. If I will think this through from every possible angle, then maybe the business won't fail like the marriage failed or the last business failed or the relationship or the whatever. And so I think that women, we're in like such a season of women just kicking butt in business if they will just quit overthinking and just follow their gut and realizing that so few decisions on this side of heaven are permanent. Like if you decide your business is called this and then 6 months later you decide to change it, like change it. But it's that overthinking of, but I can't come up with a name. I can't come up with a name. I can't come up with a name that's costing you years. And guess what? Somebody else is going to come on. They're going to figure out a stinking name. They're going to do what you intended to do. They're going to be successful. And you're going to be wishing that you was the girl that invented the purses that when you open have the light in the bottom, because that was one of my ideas.
You know, it's funny you're saying that because my agency named Wise Whisper Agency. The reason I got this name was because I didn't have time to think of a name. And that is the difference between me and a lot of people. And I've actually done a lot of reflection, and not to toot my own horn over here, but that is one thing I'm good at, is moving quickly.
Same.
And I realized some of it's a trauma response. So I had a sister who was an addict when I was a kid, and it became a comfort zone for me. Every birthday, I would beg her, please quit smoking. But what I was really saying as a little girl was, please don't die. Please live longer and choose me. That showed up with men. So my urgency and love showed up with me being like, choose me, pick me, live for me. And it ended up translating into me picking a lot of workaholics, like, because I was very used to competing up against something that was really big. And my sister, it was drugs. When it came to love. But my urgency in life came from a completely different place. It came from my dad. I watched him lose everything. Watching somebody lose everything teaches you, at least for me, that I don't want to feel that way.
How do I make sure that never happens?
Make sure that never happens. I better get this shit moving quick because I want to get to the fun part of life. So I think everybody listening has different, like you talk about overthinking, a lack of urgency, the freeze. What's the word I'm looking for?
Fight or flight, or the freezing.
Yeah. And when I think about my business, it's like, it's an urgency thing. And it's funny to see that it's not domain specific, right? Like urgency and love is from one root of my upbringing. Urgency in business is from a different one. And so I hope that everybody listening, if they do have feet that they're dragging towards the things that they want, they start to not go from the head, but really from the heart of like, where is that freeze coming from in you? Where's that urgency coming from in you? Is it serving you? Going back to people, Jennifer, who are dragging their feet in sales from a tactical perspective, how do you get from the yes, send me the paperwork, to the payment has come in, this is moving? Because obviously not every person that has cold feet are you going to sit down and do a mindset session with. What are some sales strategies that you do to keep things moving?
Yeah, we've really kind of quit doing sales calls like that.
Yeah,
we quit doing sales calls, period. Because there was, for a season, I felt like I was having to beg people to coach with me. And I'm like, dude, it's like, I've got the receipts to show, what we've done in the last 10 years in the online space. I don't want to have to beg you, to want my coaching. This is what I really believe that I can help you to learn, to see, to do, to execute, to implement. But at the end of the day, like, it's all on you. And I just don't want to have to try to convince people anymore about the, what I think is the real value in coaching. I really just don't. And so we've stopped a lot of our sales calls and things. And so we are relying mostly on our email list at this point. We've got well over 100,000 email subscribers. We clean it out every couple of months. So it's like fresh. Every time my team's like, we just deleted 8,000 names. I'm like, gosh, no, don't do that. But we get 75% of all of our sales just from my email list, which
Wow.
is, way smaller than what my social media following is. So we're not relying on social. We're not relying on sales calls. We're relying on our email list. And that has gone really well. I want to talk real quick just so about one thing, because when I hear that people are workaholics, because I feel like I'm so not a workaholic.
Yeah.
I love what I do, but I actually, turns out I love my husband and my kids and my friends and vacationing and the beaches and walking and
A
dogs.
little bit more.
All that, way more. So
Yeah.
I'm the girl that's constantly like, how do I work less but make more? How do I work less but make more? When I hear people that are working, they're choosing a lot of times, because it's a choice to overwork. I always think it's either fear-based because they're terrified that, they're going to lose everything, or that if they don't do every single piece of their business, that it's not theirs, or that somebody else is going to mess it up. So it's either fear-based or it's avoidance. What are they avoiding? Going home and having real relationships. See, as women, like, you're good at what you do. I'm good at what I do. A lot of the people who are listening right now, they're really good at what they do. And so we have some like confidence in that area, right? Sometimes it's easier to focus on the thing that we already know. We already know what we're good at. People think we're amazing in business, than it is to come home and have real life conversations with our spouse and have to get into the nitty gritty of things. And it's hard and it's not always easy. And sometimes, like when I look at, we've got 4 children, we had 3 biological, and we decided to adopt a little girl. She's been with us now for 6 years, but Ashley, I'll be like 800 years old when this little kiddo graduates high school. And so sometimes it's like, it's easier to deal with my Instagram following, where people love me and think I'm amazing, than try to figure out, how do I parent a kiddo who comes from a trauma background, who has ADHD, who has, some significant things from her childhood that still show up in today. Like, I know business, I don't know that. And so I always think when women are overworking, you're either avoiding something or you're terrified of something, one of the two. Because you don't have to.
Yeah, totally. And I think, I could go through a whole rabbit hole with you on just addiction and workaholism and all these different things.
Sounds like we both kind of know some things just based on experience.
I'm like you, Jennifer. I love people and my people. I love my people so big. Like, I want to be with them all the time. I am in a season where I want to have kids. And so I'm working my little butt off right now. Well, it's kind of a big butt. I've been going to the gym, but I've been working my big butt off.
We all were after COVID. So lots of grace.
Yeah, I'm like, I want that security and I love what I do. It's both. And it is really hard. And I want to acknowledge that it is really hard. I will say that we have built something really fast in a short period of time that I'm proud of. And this brings me to my final question, which is about risk. When you're coaching people, obviously they're hiring you and paying you for results. Half the results, more than half the results, is on them. You're only so powerful. You tell them what to do.
Right.
You're responsible to your clients to have integrity, but not for them. Like, they got to go.
100%.
I always felt that struggle when I was a career coach. I'm like, I can't go into the job interview and get you the job. You might still be the problem. This might be a personality issue, and there's not a price you can pay a career coach in the world to fix how you're showing up in that way. I still think business always has a risk. People are paying you and you're getting a job done. So in our case, we have a very powerful speech writing team. Our creative director was Steve Jobs' right hand, and she made decks for him, wrote speeches for his executive team. She wrote Apple's Credo for 13 years. Our speechwriters all wrote some of my favorite shows. One wrote Lizzie McGuire, one wrote The New Girl, like some of the best writers I've ever come across. We can deliver a speech that's powerful. Granted, it's subjective, right? Like, out of the past 50 customers, we probably have 2 that our writers are just texting like, I just want to jump off a cliff and never talk to this person again because they're just so unpleasant and unpleasable.
Yeah.
Business involves subjective satisfaction and action quite often. How do you protect yourself as a business coach, as a business owner, from those risks or from those heart-sinking clients that are never really going to appreciate who you are or what you're offering, but they're always going to test the boundaries?
Well, I do think it's okay to like love and release some of our clients sometimes because they're, you can be the juiciest peach in the whole wide world and there will be still somebody out there who does not like peaches. I love that saying. And so like, I know I'm not for everyone. And I have really honed in on who my ideal client is. I know who she is. I am really forward facing with my beliefs on things, my faith, how I, run my life. Our family's kind of an open book. And so no one should come into my coaching and be like, oh gosh, Jennifer's going to pray on this call. It's not a surprise. Like I am in my coaching, just like you see me on my Facebook and my Instagram. So that's one thing. I do think that sometimes people are not consistent between who they are forward facing and then what they're doing, in their groups and their courses, et cetera. So I feel like I'm consistent. So that works really well. Two, I also understand that sometimes we get into a coaching situation and we're just not a good fit. We thought that we were, and we're just not. There's people I've released because I'm like, you know what? I think that somebody else is going to be able to help you better. I just don't think that we're a good fit. There's other people who've come to me and they're like, you know what? I just thought it was going to be one thing and it's not. And so then I think, okay, that's an opportunity for myself and my team to explain things better, to have a better, things set up so that there's no, so everything's clear on paper, it's clear in conversation, and make sure we're meeting the
What about
expectations.
if you've put overhead quite extensively out, right? Like I've paid a lot of people. So we have one client out of the past 50, there's genuinely been 2 that we all just wish never came through the doors.
Yeah.
But we've put a lot of overhead out on that person.
I think that it's just business. I think that you just chalk it up to business. I love
you give them a refund or you.
Well, a lot of times I think that it's appropriate. We try to give refunds when possible because number one, I want people walking away from my groups with a decent taste in their mouth. And sometimes I think that is more winsome and that speaks more volume about who we are and who I am. And that's more important to me, the integrity and the reputation than the dollars. Sometimes also it's kind of like I don't know, what would my kids call it? Hang on, Ashley, I'm looking for the word. This is menopause brain. It's a flex. It's kind of sometimes a flex to be like, and here's your dollars back. Bless you as you go. And I don't mean that in a snarky way, but sometimes that's just most appropriate. And so I think that we have to just be okay with, it's not always going to go the way that we want it to. And that would be the same whether we're the business owner, CEO, visionary, whatever, or if we were working in a traditional job. You know what I mean? There's gonna be things that if we're working for somebody else at a 9 to 5 that go sideways. And so I think sometimes people see that as like super risky, but the truth is when you're working for someone else, when you have a paycheck coming from a company, that's only perceived safety. That's not actually safe. I have so many women that will come into my coaching that I don't want to quit my 9 to 5 job because, it's so safe. And I'm like, friend, that is perceived safety. They could let you go tomorrow. Like I have been laid off. I don't know if you ever have, but that is a really vulnerable feeling. And I remember when I was laid off, I was 29 years old when I got laid off from corporate America. I had graduated at 25, top of my class in computer-based information systems. I worked for a technology company. They laid me off. I boohooed for a couple of days. And then I started a painting company. And I remember when I got offered another position in that field, and it was with a lot of perks, including a pager, Ashley, which I know that you are too young to remember what that looks like. But it was a phenomenal salary with a really good company. And my gut feeling was just like, no, let's just see what happens with this painting thing. And people were like, oh my gosh, there's no 401k. You're not going to have insurance. And I'm like, and if I end up making a butt ton of money, like I can pay for all of that. And so again, I think we're so conditioned to like think that a 9 to 5 is safe and being a business owner is risky. There's risks on both sides. And they're both hard. It was hard as heck driving in, with traffic in the city and finding a parking spot and my boss being like, it's 9:05, you're late. Like that's hard. What's also hard is we have clients that sometimes talk trash and want to quit, want to refund. I mean, we just get to pick our heart. I would rather be in control of my future, my family's destiny, our checkbook any day of the week than work for someone else. I will take that risk every single day of the week.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. Where do you recommend people go to get started just learning more from you?
Oh, yeah. Well, if they're listening to your podcast, then they would probably like, we have a lot of overlap, I think, in our audience, my podcast, which is called The Jennifer Allwood Show, not a real interesting name. And I tend to hang out the most on Instagram. My following is way bigger on Facebook, but I like Instagram people better. They're just much kinder. So send me a DM on Instagram. They just are, trust me. I mean, I've been on Facebook since the day Facebook business pages started, and DMs are just weird, but Instagram people are nicer. So I hang out there more. So,
Oh my God.
so much for having me. I feel like you and I would be friends in real life.
I know. It's too bad you're not here. You are actually making me think, because you were saying that you're in your 50s. I was thinking, man, like what value your kids must have from you being somebody that's like worked so much in modern business systems. Like sometimes my parents feel like they're on a different freaking planet, you know, they're just from a different age, and you're so here and what we're working on now. And it's like, must be really fun for your kids to be able to feel so met by you and what they could.
Yeah, my father thinks that I have a radio program, and I don't even correct him.
Exactly.
It's a podcast, Dad. It's a podcast.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't even know that they realize, you know, I had a #1 best-selling book in 6 hours on Amazon. Like they're clueless. But my kids they've watched and they've seen what their father and my husband started a golf apparel company a couple of years ago. So they have front row seats to, you know, 2 different entrepreneurs. One of them takes care of my YouTube. One of them takes care of my husband's Instagram. Like they're knee deep in business with us. And that's fascinating to watch, because with your kids, more is always caught than taught. And so they've got the entrepreneurship bug, and that from a mom's perspective is really super cool to watch. So
awesome. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you.
Thanks for tuning in to the U-Turn podcast. I hope you learned so much in this episode and you're putting it into action today. We would love to hear from you. Slide into my DMs at Ashley Stahl or leave a written review if you're inspired. It would mean so much to us. Be sure to subscribe to the show, because as you know, the more subscribers we get, the better the guests we can bring you. And in the meantime, if you're looking to skyrocket your personal brand and impact millions, head on over to wisewhisperagency.com to learn more about how we are getting clients booked for the TEDx stage.